Why do we black out the sides of our tanks? Now today we're actually going to show you how to black them out. We're going through redoing tanks anyway. As you can see, we've installed drains and then misting nozzles that we can shut off. I know it's not a big deal because people are like, well, you can just go through and mist. Well, when you have 70 plus animals, it takes time, and misting heads are very, very handy. Not to mention, we can have a drain set up. That way we never get waterlogged, because we had that issue when we first opened. They weren't drained, didn't have bottom drains, and we just could not get the misting heads correct. And so they would pump and pump and pump, and then you'd end up with a waterlogged tank. But anyway, I'm getting off track. My name is James, and you're watching Blue Dog Reptiles. Now, today I want to show you, so we have clear tank. This is an 8x8x12 Exoterra. Over here, we have a first coat 8x8x12 Exoterra enclosure, and you can see this scuff. That's just because we did a light coat. And then over here, we actually have, this one I actually just painted, is a full-on dark coat. Now, when you get done with it, it will look like this. Nice black background. Now, the reason we're doing this is because sometimes, like, look at this up here, for example. I can see straight through this tank, through that tank, through that tank, and through that tank, all the way down. Now, sometimes you get some sensitive animals that don't like seeing their neighbors. Our Haitian gallywasp, for example, if he sees feeders in any other tank, he loses his mind. So this has been on the books for a while, and so we decided to finally do it and get it taken care of. Now, there are different ways to do it. Sometimes you can do vinyl wrap, you can do just paper. There's different ways, but this is how I like to do it. Man. Okay, so this is diamond paint. I don't want to knock that thing off the edge. If you notice, I did put the door open, and that's so that I can move the tank around from the front, because we're not painting the front, so it's so I don't get my hands full of paint. Now, typically when we do our first coat, what I do is, let's see if I can paint, and now you see how it's streaking here? Always, always, always put paper towels underneath, because I make a horrible mess. But you see how you can see through it? That is perfectly fine. Now, if you do, you can do a heavier coat, but I would recommend laying it and doing one set at a time if you're going to do one heavy coat. Now, glass doesn't like to grip paint. So, what you can do to help the glass grip it better is take some just 220 grit sandpaper and scuff up the glass. The problem with that is if you ever remove this, you have scuffs now on your glass. So I just like to do a light coat of paint. You can see, I can still see through that. So now we're gonna rotate it. And now we're gonna do the back. Now you see how much darker that already looks. Now make sure, there's a reason we put the drains and misting heads in first. That was so if I got paint on them, around them, it wasn't a huge deal. And if he were to go and drill this after it was painted, it could rip the paint off, because this is just latex paint. So we drill the tanks first, and then we go through and paint them. Now, if you want to be a neat freak and go through and tape off everything, like all the trim and all that, knock yourself out. It doesn't hurt anything to do that. I just know that once I get these done, you're never going to see it because the tanks aren't going to move. Well, that is until we move to a different location here in a few years, but we got time. Heck, by the route, with how slow it's been going lately, that's probably how long it's going to take just to get this all done. All right, so there we have it. Now you can see on the inside there's a lot of different holes and going through. That's perfectly fine. Now I know that this tank is close to being dry. It does have a little bit to go, but it's in my way because I have a lot of tanks to paint. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to set it back in place. And there we go. Now you should be able to see in there and not see any gaps in the paint. So now what we can do is come back here, take this one, set it to the side. I have this tote, this poor tote. There's actually roaches in here. Oh, come on, open up. Don't close on me. This one is dry now, so we're going to set that there. And we're going to go through and hit it with a heavier coat. We're making sure now to purposely fill in all the gaps. Mostly because I don't want to come back through and have to redo this. Good rule of thumb, hit the top and the bottom really well first, and then the rest will just come together. Now, depending on how sloppy you make it, depends on if you're gonna have like runoff, but like I said, nobody in my store is going to see. They're just gonna see the clean appearance of the inside. They're not going to see the rough exterior. Now, if you do have, let's say you do have this in a showroom, in your office, and you're like, I got to make it look cleaner than a 3-year-old painted it, that is perfectly fine. You can go vinyl wrap, or like most people, you can actually take your time. I have so many tanks to paint. We've been doing them in typically about runs of about 5 at a time, because we still have animals that are in most of the setups, and so we can't just empty them all and, you know, drill them all and then paint them all the same day. No, can't do that. We have to do a few, reset them up, which it's fine because we're actually changing the soil out for a new soil that I just created. So it's a, man, look, I think a 3-year-old could paint better than I do. Jesus. So once again, run across the bottom, run across the top. I'm leaving it nice and heavy on here. And this is, you know, this is what we're going to do for all of our tanks, not just the 8x8x12s. And guess what? If you mess up, you can always scrape it off and start over. Now you can see there is a hole back there, so I did miss a spot. So, if we can get... And I actually see it because it's down below the drain. So I'm not surprised I missed it. And there we are. Turn it again, get one last look in it. The bottom, I'm not too worried about. I see a couple spots there, but it's gonna be covered up with substrate. So there's that, guys, for you. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial on how we do stuff. And as always, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hope hope you guys enjoyed this. Let us know what you guys think. Do you guys prefer paint, or do you prefer vinyl? I don't know. I just couldn't imagine vinyl with drains. It seems like a pain. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Please consider subscribing, and we will see you guys next week.